they see 10 to 13% performance improvements the next day just by sleeping. There's no additional practice, no special thing that they did. It's just simply they slept.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Musician Podcast, where you'll learn how to practice more effectively and perform better under pressure with insights from expert musicians and the latest research in performance psychology. I think we all intellectually understand that sleep is important, but I think our knowledge of this is often in a more abstract general sense, and we may not truly appreciate how much of our moment-to-moment or day-to-day experiences are being affected by sleep or the lack thereof. There are, of course, a lot of books and podcasts and resources out there that are devoted to the topic of sleep, but your specialized focus in performance is the one that I'd be really curious to explore today. And there are two things, maybe this would help to frame our conversation, but there are two things that I think most often people ask me about and can be most frustrating for a musician. And that's number one is where practice doesn't stick. Like we put in the time, often many, many hours, and things just don't seem to stick the way that we expect them to, or we don't tend to progress as quickly as we would like to. And the other is this gap between practice and performance. With the Olympics going on now, we see instances where athletes perform at their best, or maybe even better than they have before. They set personal bests, personal records, Olympic records, world records, and so forth. And then there, on the other side of things, are people who are frustrated because they've worked really hard for this for 4 years, their entire lives, and inexplicably don't perform at the level that they're capable of. And that's something that I think we can all appreciate, and musicians as well. And so that falling short of our true abilities on stage is the other element that tends to come up a lot. And so there are obviously a lot of factors that play into this, but I'd love to explore the role that sleep might play in each of these two key areas. And I'm not sure where exactly to start, but wherever you'd like to start is totally fine.
Yeah. So, I think it is important to kind of start from the basics. And I think it's actually important to understand the foundation, why sleep is so important. I think once people understand that what sleep is actually doing, everything else kind of clicks into to place. So first thing first is, how many hours sleep we need. The general rule of thumb is 7 to 9, and that's according to the National Sleep Foundation and the CDC. And I want to be clear, it's not the time in bed scrolling your phone, it's actual sleep. And actually, young adult and teenager do need a little bit more, probably closer to 9 and 10, in order to have the best quality quantity of sleep. A lot of people ask me this question, they say, ooh, I feel fine on just 5 hours. Why do I need to try to sleep longer? Well, first of all, true short sleeper is actually incredibly rare. We're talking about 1 to 3% of the population. And these are the group of people who genuinely thrive on just 5-6 hours, and it's genetic. And they have absolutely no consequences of just having that 5 hours sleep every day. They're very lucky. And so, if you think that you're one of them, statistically, you're probably not. And also, I wanted to point out that feeling fine and functioning at your ceiling is very different. And we adapt to sleep deprivation, and we kind of stop noticing how impaired we actually are. So once you actually get more sleep, extend your sleep, then you're like, oh my goodness, I can actually function at this level when I have that much sleep. So that's kind of basic number one. The second foundational kind of sleep science is the two biological processes. So the circadian rhythm, or the process C, and the sleep pressure process S. Process C, the circadian rhythm, is really what tell us when to wake up, when to fall asleep. And the strongest stimulus is the sunlight. So the sunlight in the morning kind of enter our eyes, stimulate the master clock of the brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And that kind of trigger the whole activation of different wake neurons in the brain. And that kind of set the circadian rhythm. And as the night goes, the surrounding environment gets darker, it kind of releases that stimulus and in a way kind of releases that break. So the brain starts to release melatonin from the pineal gland. So imagine on stage with the stage lighting at 10, that really can affect your brain's ability to releases melatonin. Or if you're on your phone, that the artificial lighting really can also delay the release of melatonin. So that's the circadian rhythm. Process S is the sleep drive. So imagine it like a sleep pressure gauge or filling your bathtub with water is really, about the longer you are awake, the higher the pressure. So at one point, you just can't stay awake anymore. And just one fun fact, caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors. So it temporarily actually reduces the pressure, but it's not a good fix because the half-life of caffeine is short, it's about 4 hours, and you get that rebound. So that's a temporary solution, but not for long term. So those are the kind of two main foundational sleep science that I want to kind of discuss with your audience first, because once we understand that, I think everything else would would clicks in.
I don't want to divert you from where you're going, but so the 7 to 9 hour recommendation or guidelines for sleep, is that something we know relates to the general population, or is it is it also relevant to high level performers seeking, like you said, the sort of ceiling of what's possible for us, like peak performance?
Yeah, 7 to 9 is for the general population. And I would say for high performers, like athletes, I work with athletes a lot. And I do say 9, 10 is definitely better than the 7 hours of sleep. And Tom Brady is well known for sleeping 12 hours a night. So yeah, definitely if you can get more is probably better. But I think most importantly, we're not really kind of fixating on that number. It really has to be also how you feel clinically, or when you perform, when you practice, how you feel, rather than just, oh, I sleep 8 hours, that's good enough. You have to kind of also add some other information, how you perform. Are you learning pretty well? Are you having pretty good emotional control, all that.
Anecdotally, one of the things that people sometimes say, people who have sort of convinced themselves that they don't need to sleep a lot, is they describe trying to sleep more, whether it's, going from 6 hours to 8 hours or something like that. And then sometimes they'll describe that they feel worse or they feel more tired when they do that. Like, is there something to that, or is there just an adjustment period where they just need to get used to sleeping more, or how might you?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the exact scenario. If you're not sleepy and trying to force yourself to go to bed, it's a very frustrating experience. So one of the main teaching for insomnia is go to bed when you're sleepy, because you're going to bed when your sleep drive, process S, is at the peak. And also align with your circadian rhythm when the melatonin is rising, for example. It also depends on if you're exceeding your wake time. So wake time is really critical because that's your anchor for your circadian rhythm. So for example, on the weekend, a lot of teenagers try to catch up with sleep because on weekdays they just don't sleep enough because their school start time is really early. So that weekend, when they kind of go beyond their wake time, sleeping until noon, for example, while that's, I think for a teenager is important because catching up with sleep is better than not having enough, because truly I think teens are really, I would say it's a public health crisis in terms of teens deprivation. 80% of teens are not sleeping enough because of school start time and some other biological factor. But that 3 hour extra on the weekend really can give you that side effects of going beyond your circadian rhythm, that misalignment, almost like jet lag, basically. So that may be the reason why someone may say that, oh, when I sleep longer, I don't feel as good.
There are a number of things that I think I'm going to want to ask about in more detail, like jet lag and circadian rhythms and so forth. But I wonder, if we take a look at each of those kind of basic things, learning and performance, I wonder if we could get into some more details around the learning in terms of not just the impact of sleep on learning, but like how can we maybe utilize naps or how we structure our learning sessions around sleep to get the most out of our learning or practice sessions or study sessions, whatever amount of sleep that we might be getting.
Definitely, there are practical strategies for performing artists. And I do think that telling people just sleep longer, it's not practical because sometimes there's a lot of different constraints, like, curtain time 10, and we really cannot fall asleep until like past midnight, So I think there are definitely strategies. Strategic nap is definitely one of them. A quick nap, 20, 30 minutes nap, can be really helpful in terms of improving your cognitive performance. It's not as restorative as longer naps. So longer naps meaning 30 minutes up to like 3 hours, because longer naps, then you're hitting these kind of more restorative sleep stages like the deep sleep or stage 3 sleep. But the problem with longer naps is sleep inertia. So meaning that you wake up with that grogginess. There's a very interesting study looking at medical residents, what happened when they're wake up in the middle of the night from a call or something. And then they measure their performance output. And what they found was that they're not performing at their baseline until 1 hour after sleep or long nap. So that's important. So meaning that you should definitely not sleep 3 hours right before your performance. I think that's not a good idea, but short nap can be potentially very helpful. But one thing about nap is that it can take away that sleep pressure, and that can therefore affect your ability to fall asleep at night. So you just kind of have to be careful about that. And I would love to talk to your audience about the function of different sleep stages because I think that can be pretty relevant for performers. So when we fall asleep, it's not a solid event. We actually go through different sleep stages, and nowadays we have sleep tracking devices, Apple Watches. We know that pattern, right? The sleep stages that we cycle throughout the night. So when we fall asleep, we go through light sleep, so stage 1 and 2, and then stage 3, which is your delta sleep or deep sleep, and then you have your dream, REM sleep. And that 90-minute cycle, we actually have about 4 to 6 times of that. I would say for performers, it's so important to have stage 2 and 3 sleep because of motor skill consolidation. Say when you practice a passage or a piece of choreography, you're encoding that skill during that stage. And that's through a brain activity called sleep spindles. And it directly linked to how well a motor skill get stabilized and refined. And stage 3 sleep or deep sleep, it helps to coordinate that whole process. It actually provides that slow rhythmic slowing, that timing that allow those spindles to fire in organized way. So they kind of work together. You need both stage 2 and 3 sleep. And one study from I think 2013, they looked at pianists and they do a sleep study looking at the effect of sleep on their performance. So what they found was that they see 10 to 13% performance improvements the next day just by sleeping. There's no additional practice, no special thing that they did. It's just simply they slept. So sleep is where techniques get wired in the brain. So that's number one. Two is the REM sleep. So REM sleep is so important for memory consolidation and emotion processing. basically allows you to keep the memory of the experience while reducing that emotional charge attachment to it. So when people are sleep deprived, when you look at functional imaging study of the amygdala activity, which is amygdala is your brain's kind of threat response center, the activity actually increased by around 60%. So if you're underslept, if you're going into audition, your brain is more reactive, more threat sensitive, and less regulated. So sleep isn't just recovery, it's really where techniques get strengthened, emotion balance get restores. It is really important for performers.
Can you say more about the relationship between sleep and emotional reactivity? I don't know that that's something that we think about very much like strategically. Like I think we know that when we haven't slept as much, we're a little bit more reactive to things emotionally and stress feels different and so forth. But yeah, what you were starting to say there was interesting and intriguing, and I wonder if it had ramifications for or implications for when we should be prioritizing sleep in particular, whether before or after performances, whether they went well or whether they went poorly and so forth.
Yeah, so I mean, this kind of bidirectional relationship between sleep and mental health, we see that actually in all kinds of performance study. So definitely in athletes, first responders, performing arts, students of different levels, high school student, undergrad, medical students. The finding is always very similar. It always show a dose dependent response. So meaning that the more sleep deprived they are, or more subjective daytime drowsiness they have, the level of depression and anxiety symptoms kind of go along with it, you know? So it's almost like that sleep deprivation is that drug or that substance that cause the depression, anxiety. I think that's really important to recognize. And I want to kind of point out another study because a lot of the performance studies in any domains, any groups, always look at what happened when we don't sleep enough. We have a few study looking at sleep extension. So there's this really important sleep extension studies in NCAA athletes. And what they did was very simple. Basically, they asked them to sleep 3 hours longer for 6 or 10 weeks. I can't remember now. And what they found was that their reaction time, the accuracy, and mental health is better. So less depression symptoms, less anxiety. And that effect actually persists even beyond the sleep extension period. I was kind of preparing for this talk. I looked it up as, if there's any study like this for a musician. There is one. So there's one study from last year looking at the effect of sleep extension in musician. And what they found was very similar. What they saw was that they see improvement in rhythmic stability. It probably make more sense to you. Sight reading accuracy, I understand that, and memory. So I think that's great. I mean, it's very empowering that, we can actually do something about it. We can actually sleep more to be better and really performing at our peak, at our ceiling.
In the event that sleep extension may not be feasible or possible, or even if people just don't want to, because there are other things they want to do with waking
Right.
hours in their day, I wonder if you could say a little more about how naps could help. And obviously, I think sleeping continuously is going to be better for us than putting in naps. But like specifically with regards to learning, I'm curious if someone were to choose between caffeine or a nap before they practice, or even in terms of timing of naps, like if you're going to have a short nap, should we be napping before we practice? Is there a benefit to napping after we practice? Is there a difference between the two? I wonder if you can say more about that.
Yeah, definitely think sleep banking can be a really useful strategy for performers. So it can come in a form of naps. So you're right. I think sleep extension in one solid kind of nighttime sleep may be better because you're going through all the sleep stages. But nap is not a bad alternative. It's definitely can be really important and powerful. We discussed earlier the differences between the short and the long nap, how short sleep can be really helpful for cognitive performance and reaction time, but longer nap also can help with other things like just more restorative because you're going through the deep stages. But, in terms of for performers, I think we really kind of have to think about how to fit that in, right? So, for example, in the rehearsal time when your nights are more flexible, you can certainly try to bank sleep. It can be an hour more, 30 minutes more, or adding a nap in. So that's the time you bank it before you go into a higher demand time. So that can be one strategy. I think napping and sleep extension can be a tool for recovery. So after a long run of performance, perhaps you do want to kind of recover, right? And sleeping more is a way to help recovery. And the reason is during the deep sleep, I didn't mention this before, sleep is also important for immune system, muscle tissue repair. That's when the immune cells go to the lymphatic system, the lymph nodes. So all kinds of good stuff. And there's lymphatic system, which is a brain cleansing process that the brain cleanse out waste product and neurotoxic protein. And then human growth hormone, which is super important for recovery, whether it's just after performance or injury recovery. I think when it comes to performers, there should be a different way to add more naps or extend your sleep. Once again, I think preseason, pre-tour rehearsal time, when things are more flexible, you want to bank your sleep. During the performance season, when maybe you don't have enough time to do that, you can fit in that 20 minutes nap, maybe 4 hours before the performance. That can be really helpful. And then off-season recovery, you want to increase your sleep from 7 hours a night to 9 to 10 hours a night so that you can have physical and cognitive recovery.
Let's say somebody is going to have a really big audition, or maybe they're heading into a big international competition where there's going to be weeks of high stress performing happening. Is there a period of time in advance of that you would encourage them to start extending sleep, like whether a week or 2 months, or like what would be a good period of time?
If you look at the athlete study, they did it for a good 10 weeks or 6 weeks. That I have to look it up. I can't remember, 6 or 10. But as you can see, is more than a month. So I think if your schedule allow you to bank sleep weeks ahead of time, that's definitely best. But if you don't have that opportunity, I think a couple days is better than nothing. So actually, what study has shown that sleep extension can show up as improvement in your performance just in a matter of couple days. So yeah, longer certainly better, but couple days better than nothing.
Going back a bit, before I forget about this, you mentioned circadian rhythms. And I know that many of us think of ourselves as either being morning people or night people. And I
Yeah.
know certainly a lot of musicians, some of them, I think not many, but some of them do like practicing in the morning, and others tend to prefer practicing at night. Does it matter in terms of learning or performance? I mean, does it relate to our chronotype or our circadian rhythms? Like, what sorts of recommendations might there be for maximizing the time that we do spend practicing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So chronotype is real biology. Is actually genetic, and I think they say up roughly 40%, heritable. So it's in your genes. So if you're true evening type for performers, it's actually a good thing because most of the activity is at night. And I think it's okay to have a later circadian rhythm. You call these people night owl. Yeah, night owl is okay. It's not laziness. It's not a character flaw. You should just, make sure that you go to bed about the same time, wake up at the same time. It doesn't matter what time. And I would say don't force it. If you're evening type, don't force yourself to be morning type because it's not helpful. It's not gonna, usually they don't work. Yes, there's a way to force it to happen. Like in my clinic, sometimes I do have to help patients to be to change their morning type because of their job, you know. So it's a very tedious process of using melatonin and kind of utilizing light boxes, things like that. But yeah, I think you shouldn't force yourself to change from one type to another.
I know that sometimes auditions will happen outside the window of when we would prefer to be playing, such as like 9 or 10 in the morning. And especially if you're coming from a different time zone, that can be exacerbated by whatever time zone you happen to be auditioning in. Are they in situations, I mean, is that the sort of situation where it could be worth shifting or trying to shift your natural comfort zone for performance to an earlier time, at least for a temporary period of time? Or even then, is it better to just kind of deal with it when it happens?
Yeah, I would say if you're traveling multiple time zones, then it may be important to shift ahead of time. Westward travel is always easier because it's easier to go to bed later. Eastward is harder. The rule of thumb is if you're eastward travel multiple time zones, you can shift about half an hour per day. You can go more faster than that. So if you need to move 6 hours, meaning that you have to start shifting 12 days ahead of time. If it is just one time zone, I would say probably not worth shifting, but jet lag is real and it can have a significant impact on alertness during the day and your ability to fall asleep. And I would say you can actually use melatonin as a tool to help you to fall asleep. You just need about half a milligram, 1 milligram of melatonin to do that. You all probably heard about the importance of eating at a local time, expose yourself to sunlight in the morning, because that's the quickest way to pull your circadian rhythm to the local time zone because of that process C that I mentioned with the master clock in the brain. But yeah, I think multiple time zones definitely worth shifting ahead of time. I'll give the example that Olympics a couple times before in Japan, some of the athletes actually travel to Hawaii first to shift the time zone, train there, and then do another shift when they go to Japan. I think these athletes recognize that is the importance of shifting your circadian rhythm ahead of time so that they can peak whenever they have to perform. So there's so many kind of nuances to that as well. It's really it's a business. You can really try to move these small factors in their schedule to help them to peak at the right time.
So to make sure that I got that right, if you're going to try to start shifting your sleep schedule in advance of travel, the idea is to shift your bedtime and wake time like 30 minutes forward or backwards, depending on what direction you're going in?
Yeah, so 30 minutes if you go eastward because it's harder. 1 hour, 60 minutes if it is westward.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah, yeah,
going west, you can actually shift faster.
faster. Yeah, yeah, because
Okay,
it's
gotcha.
just naturally easier for us to fall asleep later,
Hmm,
but really hard to try to fall asleep at 7 p.m.
gotcha. Is there sort of a limit? I mean, because, if you're traveling to Asia, you would end up living on the opposite side of the day here before you go there. I mean, is that the goal, or is there some limit to which you really can't
Yeah,
go
I think
past?
it depends. Like for me, a person who is not an athlete, not a performers, I think is not as important and may not be as relevant. Although I would like to be awake, during the day so I can enjoy the trip. But for performers and professional athletes, I think that is, the difference between getting a gold medal versus not on the podium. So it really depends. I would say for high skill professional, I think shifting is a must.
And you mentioned melatonin as part of that, as well as, eating at the local time and getting sunlight and so forth. Are there other supplements that you recommend as part of that? Whether it's temporarily for the purposes of shifting our time zones, or even just on a regular basis nutritionally that we should be considering?
Yeah, there are definitely a few that I do say is effective and really no major side effects or long-term effect. But I have to say, no supplement can replace sleep, right? So melatonin, I do recommend routinely. But one thing I would say about melatonin is it's not FDA regulated. It's a supplement. It's interesting because melatonin is actually not a vitamin. It's not a supplement in other countries like the UK and Japan. You can't get melatonin unless it's prescribed by a physician. So what I'm trying to say is because it's not FDA regulated, what you get from the market really can vary quite a bit. There was a recent study a couple years ago now, basically look at all forms and different brands of melatonin, whether it's gummy or, liquid or tablets. And what they found was just like astounding. The actual ingredient of the melatonin ranges from 10% to 400%. So it's just crazy, I mean, the 10%, well, is not great because you kind of waste your money, but the 400% can be potentially harmful. If I give a child 5 milligram, you may be actually giving them like 20 milligrams. So actually, that's the reason why the recommendation from the American Academy of Sleep Medicine in terms of melatonin is get the USP certified label melatonin. And the effective dose, again, I think you just need 0.5 milligram if it comes to jet lag. You don't need more than that. But having said that, up to 10 milligram is pretty safe. The only side effects that I am aware of from my practice is sometimes higher dose give you GI side effects, but nothing major. The other supplements that I like is magnesium glycinate. So magnesium can come in many different form. So they have magnesium oxide and a couple other ones, but glycinate is great because glycinate is glycine, is a amino acid, is sedating, and magnesium is good for brain health overall. So magnesium works for people with migraine, and it also help with sleep too. So the magnesium glycinate, you have two things that help with sleep. So the typical dose that I recommend is 200 to 400 milligram a day, and you want to take it before bedtime. In terms of other substance, I want to kind of point out that alcohol, while it usually give you that drowsiness in the beginning, is really not good for sleep. I always say just avoid alcohol altogether because it actually disrupt your sleep in ways that are not intuitive. You fall asleep faster, yes, but it suppress REM, and REM is so important for us. The memory, the emotion processing, and also it gives you that rebound too. So the half-life of the alcohol is only a couple hours. So what that means is the second half of your night, you're basically bouncing between light sleep and wake. So it's not good quality sleep. So just no alcohol. Definitely, I think if you're a performer, if you can, just try to, avoid alcohol, especially if you have sleep problem. And then cannabis and CBD really come up frequently now. I think THC, cannabis overall, it is kind of not great. It's shortening your sleep latency, meaning that it can help you fall asleep. But like alcohol, it also suppress REM and also can have trigger rebound insomnia, the same process that I described earlier. So yeah, I think probably I would say alcohol and cannabis is not really good for sleep.
So one of the challenges I think is we might know that sleep is important. We might want to sleep more, but sometimes it's easier said than done, especially with irregular schedules and so forth. Do you have any tips on how we can sleep a little bit more I don't want to say easily, but for those of us who maybe have difficulty sticking with a sleep schedule or getting to sleep, are there any habits that we should be considering or things that we could do to make sleep an easier priority in our lives?
First of all, I would say don't be too hard on yourself. One night of bad sleep is okay. We're looking at kind of overall trend. So a couple of things that can kind of help with sleep. One thing is it's important to have a kind of wind down routine. And I think especially for performers, having that 60-90 minutes post performance, that wind down protocol, it may be really important because of that, the stage lighting, the adrenaline from the performance. You really need to have something that is very routine, very effective to help you to wind down. Can be a list of things. You don't have to go crazy, do like 12 things to go to bed. But the most effective, I would say, is the cooling of the temperature of your core temperature can be really helpful. So it can be a cold shower, which people don't like, and I don't. But what I usually recommend is a warm bath. And when you come out of the bath, that immediate cooling is what kind of give you that, that drowsiness. So the cooling of the core body temperature is very good. You do want to be mindful of your ambient lighting. So if you're in the hotel, make sure, those overhead lighting should be dim. If you're at home, you want to make sure, number one, the intensity of the light should be down. If you are able to eliminate these white lights and switch it to something kind of more amber lighting, that's good, because meaning that you don't have as much blue light going into your eyes. And then, no screen is definitely a golden rule. I know it's hard, it's so hard, but I would say for performers, try to limit screen use. If you have to wear blue light filter glasses, they do work. Study shows that it blocks about 80% of blue light. And definitely take advantage of these blue light filters setting on our phone or on our laptop. Definitely very helpful. And I would say don't review of the performance, no social media, no processing feedback. I think that's just not a good feedback loop to our brain. Light reading is good, calm music, meditation, very helpful. Yoga is good. No strenuous exercise. I would say try not to have strenuous exercise 6 hours before bed. So for a performer, that can be hard, right? Yeah, yeah. So, but that's really it. I think when we talk about dimming the light before bed, but the bright light in the morning is also very important. So, in the wintertime, we don't get that bright light in the morning, or if we're daylight saving, we don't get that morning light. You can actually get the light box. You can get it anywhere nowadays. That gives you the artificial lighting. So when you are looking for a light box, you do want the light intensity to be at least 10,000 lux. And if you can, blue light spectrum is better.
So when you say getting light in the morning, it's not just turning the lights on in the room, like it has to be a specific sort of light?
Yeah, I would say if you really get your sleep down, you have no problem with daytime function, then I think the regular turn on your living room light or bathroom light is sufficient. But if you have the seasonal affective disorder, that winter blues, and you just feel really groggy in the morning, not quite awake, or you have to wake up early after a night performance to teach, then you may need the extra light to wake up your brain.
So for young musicians or students or young professionals, or actually really probably for the rest of us, because I don't think we're ever too old to adopt new habits, let's say that you had to consolidate all of the knowledge that you had into three, because there might be a dozen things that we should be doing, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's hard to commit to very many. If you had to consolidate your recommendations into three essential habits that you would love more of us to start getting into the habit of, in line of everything we've talked about, what would those three things be?
Three is so hard. I wish I could have more. But I would say, I have to think about this because they're all very important. I think The first thing is anchor your wake time, because that's actually something that not a lot of people know about. Even when bedtime is different night to night, and it will for performers, a consistent wake time stabilize your process sleep, the circadian rhythm. And that's the single highest leverage sleep behavior for performers. I think banking sleep it is a very important strategy for performers with such highly variable schedules with different demands. There's so many different variables. So yeah, I mean, in the week before multi-week tours or performance, opening weeks, recording sessions, all that, I think extending sleep by 30 minutes up to 2 hours nightly can be a game changer, I think, for performers. This one it may not be the most important, but I think is actually, I think it's important. Let's just say it's important. So I think seeking novelty, cognitive novelty is so important. So maybe not so much for musician, but maybe like more for performers doing long runs, seasons at a time. The material is just saying thing over and over and over. And I think one thing people don't recognize is our brain need challenges. So, think about the brain as muscle. If you do the same exercise, lifting the same weight forever, we don't gain any muscles, right? We don't see improvement. So you do want to challenge the brain with novelties. So what does that mean for performers during a long runs or seasons? That means that they may have to actively seek cognitive challenges outside the performance, learning something new. If they have time, learn a new repertoire, study a new language, because challenge the brain by learning new things actually does something to our sleep. So when we are actively learning during the day, we have more delta sleep or slow wave sleep, deep sleep, and three stage three sleep. So and we know that that is very important, right, for restoration, for learning, for that muscle memory that we talk about with the spindles. So you do want to kind of continue to challenge the brain. I'm not saying that you should completely change, act two or something crazy, but you can change your interpretation of the music differently. So that's would be my third recommendation.